I like to tell the people, like, we're going to do the post, and in the post, we're going to talk about Jeremy, right? So we don't need all his background and stuff. Like, let's just jump right in, right? So I do like to jump right in. And I say that because, I listened to this podcast the other day. It's a business coach. I want to learn something, right? His name is there, his info is there. It's like, oh, this is good. Like, this is interesting. But for 30 minutes, I did not learn a single thing. I learned that he went to school in some little town. And I was like, okay, this is this, but like, let's do it. So I was really eager, but unfortunately for 30 minutes, I didn't get anywhere.
So Jeremy Prudhomme, CEO of Onpod, thank you so much for joining me on Podcast Junkies.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And then remind me again and remind listeners where you're calling in from, because it's always interesting to see where people are setting up their spaces.
Yeah, so right now I'm actually in Thailand, but I live here and I basically work remote. But I have 4 studios now. I had 3 that are open, a fourth one that's opening soon.
Yeah.
4 podcast studio, and they're all based in Canada. So 1 in Ottawa, and then 3 in the surrounding of Montreal, and we're expanding after that. So
for those that are watching, you obviously wouldn't be able to miss that Rubik's Cube behind your shoulders. As a child of the 80s, I couldn't resist but ask where that came from, and if that's if you're a bit nostalgic in terms of that as well.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah.
Have you solved it yet?
Yeah, like I've solved it many times. It's really just patterns, right? It's not that hard. It's not that hard when you learn the pattern. It's just the end. It's just the end that's a little hard. The rest is kind of easy when you think about it.
I actually saw the documentary with my partner. We watched that Rubik's Cube one. You saw that one? That was pretty bananas.
Yeah, a while back. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
They were doing it behind their backs, and it was like sub-seconds in terms of, I don't even know how you could move your hands that fast.
I'm not sure. It's pretty insane what these kids can do.
So I was looking at some of your past history. It seems like you've always had a passion early on for video. How did that start?
Yeah. It all started in high school where I was a DJ at a, high school dance and things like that. So I was in charge of the music, sound system, lighting. So basically kind of started there where a friend of mine were like, oh, let's go to this Toronto light and sound convention. And then we went to see all the DJ stuff. Denon at the time was, big one. And then I got them old, like Denon headphones. Which it kind of sparked a little bit of a passion there. And then I ended up going to the one kind of like, it was an option of going to university or college. And then I fell into a college video production program. So that kind of sparked everything, right? Starting with working in broadcasting. So I worked at CBC, Radio Canada, which is the Broadcast Corporation in Canada. And so I worked there for 7 years doing everything from directing to editing to just filming, working in politics sides. So that's where it all started.
So were you one of those folks that would just like always had a camera on you and just felt like always the need to record wherever you were?
Well, I started like really young, I guess. I was barely 19 when I started working at CBC. So I wasn't as insane with a camera everywhere, like a buddy of mine was often filming BMX videos. So I did start filming skateboarding a little bit, but he was like, I went to school. So for me, it was a job at the beginning, and then it became a passion down the line with the business and all this stuff. But it wasn't like I wasn't filming everything every day like him. It's interesting, Chris Duran, he got a really good business. He probably makes like $300K a year filming, and he studied as an archaeologist, which is mind blowing. And then he got into CBC, he got in as an editor, and he started his own business. And now he just runs a video business that's killing it. Just by, he started by just filming BMX, right? Which is kind of cool.
Regular listeners and viewers of the show will already know this, but my first passion is actually DJing. I grew up DJing like house music, learned on vinyl with the turntables. I've still got them here in my office actually for jamming out. So I always have a love for that. And it's actually how I got into podcasting. I thought I was going to have a podcast to interview DJs and then switch to this show, Podcast Junkies. So Were you DJing a lot at the time, or did you quickly move into the video?
Yeah, like in high school, I was DJing a lot. And
Okay.
then I guess after going through college and video production, then I quickly jumped into video and doing some video for people. So
Mm,
I quickly switched my
yeah.
gear. I think DJing was not for me, it wasn't my calling. It takes a lot, right? You have to know like a good amount of music, right? And
Yeah.
really know your set and everything. And video was more in my chords.
Do you still follow the scene at all, the DJ scene?
Not too much. We did
Yeah.
it's funny, I worked for this company it's called
Okay.
Soundstage Network. And basically we've done for the past 10 years videos for them. And it's an online catalog of hi-fi audio. So
Mm,
high-end audio. So really high-end speakers
yeah.
like the Violet or there's so many of these speakers that are unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Like
Tens of thousands of
just
dollars.
i- insane amount of money. And then they add these sub rails, these
Yeah.
subwoofers that you would add or whatever, these line conditioner that
Yeah.
cost an insane amount. We went to film this company that they're really nice, but it's not for me. We filmed this company that they made hi-fi cables,
Yeah.
and you can buy an XLR, a pair of XLR cables for 23,000 euros. You're like, what? So all that to say that we did a shoot with a DJ that was using different line conditioner and things
Yeah.
for his stuff. And so I don't really follow the theme, but we do sometimes end up like with some DJs and some real cool audio stuff that we film.
I'm getting flashbacks. Here in the States, there was a magazine. It's probably still out. It's called Crutchfield. And it's the
Okay.
magazine for people that like high-end audio. And it's like, it's basically hi-fi porn because it's just like all those like ribbon speakers and tens of thousands and these crazy turntables that cost like $7,000. And it was, and Monster Cable, I don't know if that's still a
Yeah.
thing now,
Yeah.
but
And
all this premium, even the cables, it's funny. Like you would think like people just want that pristine sound.
yeah. Yeah. No, it's really expensive stuff. And I've heard all types of speakers
Yeah.
and different audio. And it's like sometimes I see it, like I
Yeah.
see the technology behind it, and that's really cool. Sometimes it's harder to see,
Yeah.
right? What technology they use to make it so expensive. So, but it's a choice, right? If you have the money, it's sometimes you just want to go in that direction, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so prior to Onpod, it seems like you're doing a lot of freelance work, videography. Any, and one of those projects stands out as something memorable and of an experience?
Oh, there's a bunch. I've shot a little bit for the Canadian Space Agency
Oh, okay.
through the Science and Tech Museum and the Aviation Space Museum.
Yeah,
And we did a bunch of interviews of, not necessarily people that went to space, because we did that too, right? Not necessarily astronauts, but people that worked in the space industry to get people to space, right? And I remember this interview with this older gentleman, and he's like, he brought basically I guess the parachute home that was going to go into space to like
yeah.
come back home, right? Come back to Earth. And his wife was a seamstress and she saw this and she's like, this is horrible. Like, I'm going to redo this. So she re-sewed the whole thing.
Wow.
And then later on, it went into space. So there's all these really cool things, that you get to meet these people, and it's really interesting. I also work with another space industry that they're trying to get a rover to space with rover technology to it's almost data recognition for on the moon or on Mars. So there's some cool technology stuff that I've filmed that was really, really interesting and really interesting people. So I got really lucky on that front. And then the hi-fi. I mean, you film these speakers, like what is it called? Like Vivid Audio. You probably never heard about it, but I
Yeah.
went to South Africa to film the construction of these speakers, and the shells of them are really like nice curves and nice design. So they have a really cool product. And so that's a really cool one that I've filmed a few times.
I've had some experiences with working with teams that are recording on site and a lot of videography. What did you learn over those years, when it comes to storytelling and being in an environment where you're setting up all these cameras? People probably get nervous. There's like a lot of lights, a lot of activity going on. And in the middle of all that, you're probably working with people or maybe doing some of this yourself where you're having to do an interview or talking to people and getting them to engage and really put them at ease in these types of environments. And so I imagine you learned a couple of tips over the years for how to get the best out of
Yeah.
people, so you could, obviously from a video perspective, the fewer takes you can do, the better. So what are some of the things you learned over the years as you were starting to run these projects?
Yeah. Well, two things, right? You talk about the fewer takes because, it used to be data used to be massive,
Yeah.
massive. And I could talk about data for a long time. But nowadays we can shoot in H.265. We can shoot in a smaller format that's still high quality. So that helps a lot, right? Because, in a long time ago, we shot on tape. So, we get a lot of tapes. If you get so many takes, right? Like you said, you want it to be short. You know, most often, we get a guy in front of a camera and we're trying to get that story. And then everything comes out like horribly, right? Like you just want him to say what he knows and it's just not coming out. And, the one trick that we do really often is we're just going to be like, okay, we'll stop rolling. We get in a bottle of water and then obviously we roll, right? So we start rolling and then we remove the red light in the camera. You can turn it off, stuff like that. Or we turn it off before. And then we just start a conversation and before we roll, right? And we say like, okay, tell us like about this thing. And then everything comes out extremely nice. And then we're like, oh, we're done. We were rolling and we didn't tell you because this is great. We're going to cut around it. It's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So this happens a lot, right?
What do you think it is about people, like they just get stage fright? It's just like they feel like they have to perform, or I wonder how they explain it to you.
Yeah, they're thinking too much, right? They're thinking, I need to say this in the perfect way. Or they're trying, sometimes they get a script and that's horrible, right? Because they try to stick to their script and it's not natural. It doesn't feel right. So it's really about thinking too much, right? They're overthinking it. It's like when I do it with somebody on a podcast, right? It's like anything. Some people will come with a bunch of notes on their computer and I'm like, no, like just put that away. We're just going to have a conversation. And so you have to put them at ease and then you have to make it just a natural conversation, right? It's like my teacher in college would say, it's like you're talking to Bob at the bar, your best friend, and you're having a conversation. So you got to put them there, which is sometimes hard, but in most cases doable, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of what I tell clients and students sometimes, especially with a podcast. I said there's actually three people here in this room. It's the host, the guest, and the listener. And I always wanted to feel like they just pulled up a stool at the bar or the pub, and we're just like listening to us have a conversation, not an interview, to that effect. And I think it's just human nature. I think when they feel they're on camera or on a stage, they feel this need to perform.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel it now, right? Like I have a camera and I'm
Yeah.
more of a behind the scene guy.
Yeah.
So, but I've learned through time, I need to speak or I need to teach people how to speak. So it is important and it's an important skill for anyone, right?
Yeah.
Doing podcasting is a great thing to do to bring that skill out, right? To be able to talk on camera, to talk to people, to discuss things. I think it's really important for anybody that, runs a business or anything like that.
When did you start to notice a shift for yourself, like this movement from a lot of work behind the camera, and then, you're starting to have these opportunities to get in front and tell your story?
Yeah. So I was working at the museum in the past and we got job cuts. So they cut the video production team. So then I lost my job. And then that's where I started to, okay, I need to start my own business and that's what I want to do. And I've been wanting to do that for a long time, but it's like golden handcuffs where you're stuck in this job and you're like, well, I'm comfortable, so why would I leave, right?
Yeah.
But that's when I realized, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And at first it was really hard and, it's something that we need to work on. But that's when I kind of shifted to be in front of the camera and also just about I knew the technical aspect of speaking on camera, right? Like how to do it, how to sometimes take more pauses to not say these filler words so much, which I still do. Like, I mean, everybody does it a little bit, but you can work at it and it's going to become better and better and better. So that's when it kind of started to shift for me. And nowadays it's like, I teach people, all my clients that are doing podcasts, how to do it. And it's great because you see a difference from the beginning to, maybe 6 months later or a year after. You see a huge difference.
Yeah, you mentioned this idea of starting a business. I've had my agency, a podcast production agency, since 2015, and I came out of corporate. So to your point, there's something reassuring about having that paycheck in your bank account every 2 months. I mean, every 2 weeks, and then until
Yeah.
that, and then that day that it's not anymore, and it's like, oh, this is real. Like I have to figure this out, and so I'm wondering what your entrepreneurial journey has been like. And obviously, anyone who's been in it long enough knows there's enough ups and downs to fill a whole book.
Yeah, well, my journey, like I said, at first, I was really scared, right? When you jump into it, you're so scared. And then a friend of mine said, Chris, that guy that I talked about earlier, Chris Duran, he said, like, how much do you need to live in a month? Right. And I was like, oh, 2000 something, I don't know. And he's like, okay, that's 2 day of shooting. And then, a little bit of editing. And it's
Yeah,
like, and then realizing that you're like, okay, well, this is really easy. Right. It's not that much. It's not like you need to work every day, though
sure.
in a sense you do. So that's where it all started. And then after that, so I went freelance as a video producer or videographer, editor. And later on, I had, like you said, like there's a lot of dips, right? So I had
Yeah.
that dip, and that's where everything kind of changed. I
Mm,
met this guy, Martin Clément, is a realtor.
yeah.
And basically, he needed help with his podcast. He was doing this book club with 4 guys talking about business books, very typical podcast. You've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
it probably, but it was great. And, it was all shot on like webcams and,
Yeah.
OBS and very simple stuff. And so that guy really helped, right, to bring everything kind of together. And that's where he was like, oh, it'd be nice to have like a podcast studio in the space we were in, the co-working space. And I was like, okay, maybe. And I had some gear. So then we opened up this podcast studio. We get going. And after that, funny enough, I want to talk about podcasts being a new networking way, a new way to network, because
Absolutely.
one person that you meet can change your life completely, right? So meeting you today could change my life completely. We don't know yet, but it
Yeah.
might happen.
Likewise. Likewise.
And so, yeah, Martin, we started the podcast studio. And then these guys from Epiphan Video, which is the streamer, recorder, encoder that I use in my studios, they came to my studio and they're like, "Do you want to try this gear?" And I was like, in my head, I was like, no. I was like, I like my system. Why would I want to? And it's funny because it was very IT centric, like looking at the UI, and they might laugh about this, but it's like looking at the UI, I'm like, this is, I don't know, it's not very video
User,
production, more IT,
yeah.
you know?
Not very user friendly, maybe.
Exactly. Or like visually, you were not appealed to like switch a show on this. Like it
Yeah.
was not the best, but the machine ended up being like a huge turning point for my business where I
Mm,
automated my podcast studios. So that was huge.
yeah. What's the name of that streaming service?
So it's not a streaming service. It's a box. It's an
Okay.
encoder,
Okay.
recorder streamer. And it's
Yeah.
called, so Epiphan Video is the
Okay.
company. But then they made Pearl Nano, Pearl Mini, Pearl 2, and soon Pearl Flex. So they have these boxes where you can plug in cameras and record,
Mm,
stream,
okay.
switch, encode into different things. So it's really, and it's so reliable. Like
Yeah.
mine work 24/7 and it can record. And when there's no space left, it can keep recording on top of the last file kind of thing. So it's like, it's made to run forever basically, which is awesome.
So talk to me about your experience entering the world of podcasting. Like, how did that happen? Was it just by virtue of the work you were doing in the video space? Had you been following it? Were you listening to podcasts?
Yeah. At first, in the beginning, it was not like I was just doing work for Martin and his podcast.
Yeah.
And then I got a few clients. Uh, And then with my wife's work, I was like moving away at some point, maybe why I'm in Thailand right now. And so there was like this shift where Epiphan came in and got the machine in my hand. And I said like, okay, I can build something that's fully automated,
Mm,
So that's where the podcast studio kind of came into play. And then for a year, I was testing in my kitchen with a friend that did a beer podcast called Le
okay.
Temps d'une bière, which is a French
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, not kidding. Like for a year, he just came and like the dining table was set up, the mics, everything. And
I
it's
love
like,
it.
we're not moving anything.
Yeah.
And so we drink beer, we did a podcast, and then we went in the sauna, and brew some ideas, and
Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
it all came about.
I
Yeah.
mean, nowadays that'd probably be like a many $1,000 production. People probably actually do that, set it up in the with all that. But you were doing it at home in true entrepreneurial style.
Yeah. And realizing also that it doesn't have to cost, like, because if you're a videographer and you hire me, like if somebody hires me to go do a podcast in their home, and it's like I got to bring 3 cameras,
Mm.
2 mics, it costs a lot to do that, right? So having the self-serve space was kind of a big shift, a big idea, I think, to reduce costs on podcasting while keeping quality up.
Yeah. So talk to me about the birth of Onpod and what your vision is for it.
Yeah. So, at first it was called G-Man Production. Well, my production is called G-Man Production. And then we didn't know what to call the first studio. So we called it G-Man Go. And we're like, how the name, you're like, I don't know, like, is that
Yeah.
important for my
Yeah.
business?
Yeah.
So at first it was called G-Man Go. And then I opened up a second studio, and that worked well. It was in a co-working space on the Quebec side. Basically, after that, I went in with a friend of mine. He invested a little bit. The guy that had the French podcast, the beer podcast, he invested some money. He's now out. We went together and we got a new name, which was, now looking at it, a horrible name. It was called Uberflix Studios. You can see where I went with this.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, and I'm sure a lot of viewers and listeners can relate, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because you have an idea and the first thing you do is head to like your domain registration and like, need this domain. I got it. I figured it out.
Exactly. So you try things, and it's all about doing it, right? Like if you don't do it, then it's not good. But at least if you do it, then it's good. So we had Uberflix, which was not a great name. And this one time at the office, it's in the realtor's office where where one of the studio is in Ottawa. And one guy from Uber came to get his license, like it's not a good thing. Anyway, so we changed the name. We finally got Onpod, which has NP in the middle, which to me is like no problem, So anyways, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. I see that in the logo.
But also not much, but it was a simple thing, and now it worked, and we're going to keep it. And that's how it started. Right. And obviously I had the automation idea, and we've built from the beginning to now where everything is automated. Basically, you come in the studio, you press a button, it records all the 3 to 5 cameras. After that, when you get home or at night, footage will be transferred to a server, and then automatically it will be sent to the client by email. So they get all the raw footage automatically sent to them, which is great. And then we get an email if there's editing requests, right? So we've been able to streamline everything and automate everything. The downside of the studio is that the cameras are not yet tracking or anything like that.
Okay.
Right. So it's a frame that's a little bit wider.
Yeah.
And we'll crop it in post-production. So that's what we did for now to keep it simple. We are working with some companies to have some robotics camera. In the quality, right? Like you gotta quality of sensor, quality of the camera, cost of camera. So you have to look at everything. And that becomes a big question at the end of the year. Do we switch cameras? Do we stay with these cameras? The cameras we use right now are V-cams, similar to the Lumix box cameras. They're power over Ethernet. They don't run hot. They can run 24/7. So for us, that's a plus, right? A camera that can run 24/7 is great because our cameras are always on, right?
Are you recording at 4K?
Some studios are, some studios are not. That's another big question that everybody has, or a lot of people are not educated about 4K, right? Do you need 4K?
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people are doing this on Zoom or
1080 is fine.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? And then it's funny because I've been editing some podcasts for clients that recorded in other studio, like in the UK, the US, all this stuff. And, they're giving me files that are like an insane amount of size, like 60 gigs, and 80 gigs. And then I was just like, it's, I need to download this. And it's like
emailing you, they're mailing you a hard drive. Yeah.
Well, it's really big files, and
Yeah.
sometimes the audio is not synced, like nothing synced.
Yeah.
It's like, or sometimes they shot flat, with no colors, S
Mm,
log, and it's like, this is like we're doing a podcast,
yeah.
like it's great if you're doing film, but I
Yeah.
think it's not needed. And I'm talking to the other studio owner, like it's like, do you need to shoot this high bit rate?
Of course.
Can you test a little bit less, right?
Yeah.
Like just, so we shoot the 4K is H.265, which helps us, right? Which is more compressed than H.264, so that's good. So we're at like, for an hour, we're at like 7 gig,
Okay.
maybe for an hour for 4K,
Okay.
which is, it's not full 4K, right? Like, will people see it because we exported in 1080 after?
Yeah.
No,
They're not. No,
right?
we're
So
not.
you have to,
Yeah.
most people are not exactly. So you have to play with that, right? But it's a hard line to see, like, do you want to do 4K, 1080 and all this stuff? It just costs a lot of storage, I guess.
So the automation part is interesting. So essentially, they show up in the studio, they sit down to record, and the camera's already fixed, and it's one button recording. So
Yeah.
there's nothing to
Yeah.
move. No one's manning the cameras, is what you're saying.
No.
And because okay.
No, even the lighting is automated through
Okay.
motion sensors. So it's just going to turn on when you get in,
Wow.
right? The idea is to make sure that people don't need like tech skills. And
Sure,
the
sure.
only tech skills they do need, like where it becomes complicated, that they can actually plug in their laptop into an HDMI. So now we're leveling up, and we can't control that. It's very hard because
Yeah.
somebody's laptop might not work. And then, but they can do a Zoom call from there. It's a little bit harder again, but they have to send the audio into the HDMI.
Yeah.
So they have to change their speaker output to the right output. We call it like studio or something.
Yeah.
And then what that's going to do is that it's going to record a TV, and that TV has the audio, like the audio back in the headphones
Okay.
for the guests on Zoom. And then we can cut that in post-production. Works well, but it demands a little bit of technical skill sometimes.
And usually have an on-site tech to help them figure those things out.
No. It's all video based. Yeah. So I send them a video, how the space works. Not a lot of people use necessarily Zoom, but when they do have a video that I'm talking on, right, like a Loom video or Komodo, and I'm just explaining every step. And then after their shoot, usually when I review the footage, I'll send them another video like, oh, make sure to place the mic like this for next time, and things like that, just to get a better, there's even a spot where there's a little dot for the belly button to show where the center of the shot is. Even though they got a return video, people are not tend to look at it. I don't know. It's just stuff, sometimes like they'll sit to the side or something like that, but we do our best.
It's funny because when you think about video, a lot of people who are, I guess, what you call purists, they think of video as this artisanal process. I'm curious if there were trade-offs and how you figured out how to place things and what you wanted to make sure was automated versus anything else that you would do afterwards, or if that just came up from all the years that you were doing the freelance work, you had enough information to say, hey, this setup works for 90% of people.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of technical background, and like I did direct the news at some point. So I was director, switcher, I was a camera guy, like I've done it all. Even worked in acquisition where you patch different video to different stations and things like that.
Yeah.
So I guess, what was the question again? Sorry.
It was just interesting because when you think about, videographers, they take pride in how much of their personality they're attaching. And like I said, it's an artisanal process for some people. But I think you've had that experience doing that hands-on, switching cameras, feeds, and all this stuff. And maybe you realized, hey, the basic person doing a podcast doesn't need all this stuff. So what's the 80-20 rule in terms of like, how do we get them what they need without overcomplicating it?
Yeah, I think, it was CDC at the Broadcast Corporation. Even then we had robotic cameras, right? We were going far away from having manned cameras, right? And so from seeing that to what we have in the studio, the podcast studio, very kind of relatable where, most of the studios will be robotically handled. So you save your shot on a screen, you press on it, and it's going to go to that person and go to that person. So it was very easy to have the thought process of automating everything. Now, the downside, a little bit from your question before, the downside of this is that right now, robotics cameras are not the greatest, right? For the price. So you have to, there's a trade-off, right? And that's where we framed wider. It's funny, when I started, I only saw it as a 2-person podcast, right? 2-person, 2 mics. If I had 4 mics, it's going to be too complicated. We would need like a wider shot and frame differently. But I ended up framing wider for 2 people. And then what we did is we had 2 people in the shot, 1 mic in the middle, and adjust the audio from there. And it did work really, really well, like audio wise. With the audio processing that we have today, it's like really easy to do anything with like the new Adobe podcast audio processing. I don't know if you've seen it, but that audio processing is like amazing. It's not great for super long video, but for short video, if you're a video producer and you need to fix a clip that's windy with music, it's going to clean that up and showcase the voice right away. So yeah, it was really easy to adjust all that. Now in the next studio that we're doing a 5-camera, 4 mics with 4 couches. So we'll see how that goes. But that's another downside, right? I need more cameras. I need more stuff because I want it automated. Right. So it costs more money to set up in a sense. So that's another downside.
So the way you envision it is they could pick, depending what you want. It's just me. I'm going to record my show. There's going to be like a studio for that, or I'm going to do like multi-person interview and you'll have the environment set up, but everything with an eye towards ensuring that's an automated process. They just come in, they sit, hit record, and then they're good to go.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You could be alone or you could be 2 or 3 or 4. And there's 5 cameras, so 1 single camera on each mic, and then a wide shot that could be zoomed in on our 2 shot, let's say, if we wanted to. And yeah, everything is one touch of a button and really easy to use. And we also added like another button for lighting control, so you could change the lighting, like colors in the background and things like that. So it's not bad. And I think for the future, it's really about, we'll possibly start integrating robotic cameras into it. With some tracking. The idea is to frame, the right amount of the right size and then have minimal tracking for headroom for the person, right? Because right now we don't know how tall the person is going to be. So we have to frame like way too much headroom. But in the future, we'll just have headroom adjustment, based tracking. So hopefully that's going to come soon. We're testing some stuff now. So that's pretty cool, but who knows?
What tips do you have for folks who are just getting started and might be nervous about like looking good? And, obviously you're trying to automate as much of the process to take as much of that headache off of them. But is there anything else you do in terms of coaching or guidance and, what makes for like good content?
Yeah. Everybody has their own style, right? You have your own style when you start your podcast. And, I might critique it, but this is my style.
I'd love to hear it, by the way, if we have time.
Don't take anything personal. But but I'm going to talk about it a little bit on coaching. And this is what I like is a lot of people, and it's not a mistake because today we're talking about me and all that stuff. But I don't like always to start the podcast with where you're from and this stuff because it's kind of how I do it or how I coach people is I want to get into that question. Now, obviously, if you edit your podcast in the sense that you're going to put some juicy stuff in front, right, then that's fine, right? It just takes a little bit more time. And, when you have that process down, it's good. But when you start, you want to catch the people's attention, right? So maybe you want to start with that really juicy question, and you need that question to be, we want people at home to learn something, right? And what is that question, right? Like if you're a doctor, if you're whatever you do, you want to teach them something right away. And so I like to tell people like, we're going to do the post, and in the post, we're going to talk about Jeremy, right? So we don't need all his background and stuff. Like, let's just jump right in, right? So I do like to jump right in. And I say that because, I listened to this podcast the other day. It's a business coach. I want to learn something, right? His name is there. His info is there. It's like, okay, this is good. Like, this is interesting. But for 30 minutes, I did not learn a single thing. I learned that he went to school in some little town. And I was like, okay, this is this, but like, let's do it. So I was really eager, but unfortunately for 30 minutes, I didn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
I stopped listening. And then I stopped listening to that podcast as a whole. Right.
Yeah.
But it depends the style of the podcast. It depends what you do, obviously. If you're getting superstars in and there's a good story, there's stuff
Sure.
there. But for somebody that starts their brand new podcast, it'd be good to learn something. And then at the end of the podcast, I'll say, how did you get there?
Yeah.
Right. I'll bring it right back
I love it.
and then we'll finish that up. Right. So I
Yeah.
think that would be my comment.
No, it's helpful tips, and especially with like the YouTube algorithm, like you can literally see in the graph like retention time, and then that's why we're putting out 20-second clips at the beginning of like something juicy. I see people now
Yeah.
sometimes they're doing like, and this is why I did, and they cut them off like it's like a cliffhanger, like, oh, okay, what did he say? And so there's like they're using tricks like that as well. So do you think about that just from your experience or because of what you're seeing when you're helping them now with the production? I don't know how far you go after the post, but you're helping them edit it. And then do you actually get it up to YouTube and just work with that algorithm a bit?
Yeah, we do. Well, we do different things. We usually edit with them. Well, we edit the podcast, right? Now we're just starting to like, we do want to help people post, but
Yeah.
we're not quite there in our system. But we do want to build something to help people get further in their podcast, right?
Sure.
Really push it further because certainly in Canada, there's a lot of potential, but the podcast industry in Canada is not quite there from the US, let's say. And we have a lot of potential on the French side too. And then for France and Europe. So that's a lot of interesting stuff that's going to come into play for sure. But on the English side, like there's so much content out there. It's hard for people to battle with, right?
Yeah.
But it is still a huge industry that's growing. Let's face it. Podcasting is massive.
Yeah. What are some mistakes you see people make when they're getting started with their show from a podcasting perspective? Obviously, if they've nailed down, they could have like a beautifully shot production, everything looking good with the cameras, but somehow like the content is just not there. And I'm wondering if there's anything you've seen that like kind of just 101 mistakes that people are making.
Well, sometimes they ask the few starting question where it's really starting about the person. It's like, they don't think about the viewer,
Yeah.
right? They're just, they have this person in front of them. So they want to make them feel good, but they're not thinking about the viewer. And that's what's important, right? What is the viewer getting out of your podcast?
Yeah.
Because your podcast could be amazing, but you have to frame it the right way. And also, you have to advertise your podcast, right? You have to put it out there. It's true, right? People
forget
they'll
that.
put it online and then nothing, right?
Yeah.
So your podcast becomes a small business and you need to like nurture it to get out there,
I love
right? How are people finding your podcast?
Yeah.
You have to think about it and you have to get through that motion, right? Just like your business. If I'm a videographer and all I do is video, okay, great, but I'm not getting any business. And you kind of wonder why. Well, I didn't advertise myself.
Yeah.
I'm not a salesperson, right? I'm not doing marketing and sales. So I'm missing out on everything basically. So that's a huge thing.
It's one of the things I think most podcasters getting started, they forget. They like magically think that if they post it on Apple and make one post on Facebook, like, people are going to find it. And it's like, that's just like phase one. And it's like, then it's a whole nother world out there, and they have to get started on being creative that way.
Yeah, that's phase one. And for me, I sell podcasting, right?
Sure.
And at first, what I tell people is that, if you think you won't make money right away, which is true, you won't make money right away with your podcast, but your podcast is something else also, right? It can be different avenues. I see it a lot as, I use podcasting and LinkedIn together. So I will use Sales Navigator to find clients, right?
Okay.
So with Sales Navigator, I can pinpoint the people that I think that could do podcasting, right?
Yeah.
Now you could do that, pinpoint your clients too, right? Your potential client. And then you invite them to the podcast, right? And this is where I talk about networking. Podcasting is like the new networking. And that's where you create a connection with that person in a total different way. Like you're not at a networking event where you get this business card and you're like,
Yeah,
what am I going to do with
you got
this
the
business
hello, my
card?
name is
Yeah.
badge.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great because some networking are great networking events, but
Yeah,
you're not connecting with the right people, right?
exactly.
For your
Yeah,
business.
yeah,
So podcasting can be a really powerful way, put in with LinkedIn, Sales Navigator and all that stuff to get those clients in front of you and have
yeah.
a great conversation with them. And then from there, you're building, right? So you're building your network, you're building your podcast, you're building that show slowly. And then after that, then you can bring that show, start selling something or advertising your show, I think. But the first step is like the networking step is huge.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a return that you can get today while doing podcasting.
I love that you mentioned like thinking about it with the end in mind and going to LinkedIn and Sales Navigator and figuring out like who would be an ideal person for me. And I've had some folks that have done this before, past clients and other people that have come on the show, really being intentional about who you're inviting on the show and how you're framing that conversation. And to your point, Jeremy, this idea of like, I could build a relationship or I could see this as a potential client, but I have to think about that before I go into the interview so that I'm building the rapport in a way that leads to an outcome of maybe they're saying, hey, tell me more about what you do or something like that. And I think that takes some pre-planning ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's huge and I think it's worth it. It's
Yeah,
definitely worth it for me. I bring in client to show them the studio like that.
yeah,
But it also creates these amazing conversation with amazing people that I would have never met if I didn't
yeah,
do a podcast, right?
yeah, for sure.
So it's definitely worth it.
Sounds like you have pretty aggressive growth strategies. Looks like 30 studios across the US and Canada in the next 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah. So at first, let's say we changed. The plan was for me to open all these studios, right?
Sure,
Right now
sure.
I have 4, and now the goal is to sell licensing. So
Mm,
basically, you could buy an Onpod studio. You pay for the studio. I set it up for you, and basically, I set up the booking system, the payment system, the
yeah.
storage system, and then you run your own studio. We basically just tell you how to acquire client, and then we make like we make 20% gross income
Okay.
out of this. And we help with, and then we want to build like an editing machine in the background of all the
Mm,
studios and all that stuff. So it is, yeah. So 2026, we do want to sell like at least 10 of these and open 10 new studios in probably Canada and US. And we already have like 2 lined up. So it's starting, it's going at a good rate. I think the easy thing for us also is that we build almost like Lego blocks.
yeah.
So we basically build like these camera stands where all the gear can go inside. And so we can pre-build the studio at the shop with all the gear set like rack mount into these kind of camera stand
Yeah.
and then ship that to the studio and
Okay.
then run that out, run the wires, put the set in there, and then you're kind of good to go from there.
And what type of size studio are people looking to set up, like multi-studios, one space with one studio? How much square footage usually do you require for a good setup?
Yeah. So like right now we're just doing like one studio type thing, but who knows, right? Some
Yeah.
people might have more space.
Yeah.
We're going after co-working spaces
Yeah.
because a co-working space could use our strategy to bring in clients for the studio
Mm-hmm.
and the co-working space at the same time,
Yeah.
right? So you can do basically both, right?
Okay.
If you're a co-working space owner, you would get maybe a 14 feet by 14 feet or something like that,
Okay. Not,
and then set up a studio in there. Yeah, so it varies, right? Like if you want just a table, like we have one studio that's 17 by 14, the one in Ottawa, which is
okay.
a good
Yeah.
space. Like it's a nice space, nice big table in the center with 3 cameras, and that works really well. But yeah, co-working space is going to be kind of the place for us because one, it's easy. They have internet already, like everything's
Yeah.
set up. So you don't need to like rent a building or things like
Yeah, of
that.
course.
Obviously, there's big studios like, I don't know, do you know Podster in Dubai and Singapore? Have you heard of
No,
Podster?
no.
So yeah, check them out. It's PODDSTER.
Okay.
So 2D. And they have I think it's a $2.5 million studio business,
Okay.
podcast studio business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have like 5 to 7 different sets in there.
Yeah.
And they have obviously people working there and they're in Dubai and Singapore. So there's a lot of money But still, like you look at Singapore, and Singapore has a lot of money, but it's not a big town. Like it's not huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see.
It's a fascinating model, and I think the idea of licensing is going to help you scale faster because they can just build it in, and I can see people that have spaces or unused space where it would make sense to partner with you, and that's what I think. And then the idea would be that on your website you'd list all the studios, so they'd get some marketing and visibility on that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna build this studio owner network, which kind of already exists, so we might piggyback on them, but it's still like the idea is to build an Onpod network and really push this forward and make sure that, when you open an Onpod, it's easy for you, right? And you don't need too much technical skill. It's really just about business skills and bringing people in.
What do you think the investment of time is for an owner on site? Because the allure is really like, hey, it's going to be very automated. I don't know if people can even go in on their own. I guess that depends on the co-working site. But essentially, if they go in and you give them instructions on how to record, there shouldn't be too much maintenance or on-site needed for an owner, right?
No. I mean, I have 4. I'm running 3 right now, and I'm in Thailand. So you can imagine it's very low touch. There's no technician there. I have like a guy or a couple of guys that if there's a technical thing that needs to be fixed quickly can be done,
Yeah.
But what's great about co-working spaces, they already have people there, right? That are kind of almost always there. Yeah. So it is very low touch point. The only thing that's hard in most cases is access, right? So they need access. For regular hours, it's easy. Right? You just give them a video, you say, this is the door, you go in and you record. You record, right? Yeah. So it is super, super simple. And then it's not very time consuming. Like, I guess you'd get a phone call here and there or a glitch to fix on the website or something, but nothing too much.
And then the bookings itself, like the scheduling is something just the co-working space would handle through an existing booking system, or is that anything you've built in as well?
Yeah, we would do the booking system for them because we have one that we're actually working on a new booking system, which is a white label, but it works for podcasting. I don't know if you heard about Podix.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're working with Podix right now to implement that for Onpod, which seems to be a really great system. So, funny thing is, Podix was made for Podster. I know there's a lot of pod in there. It was made for Podster in Dubai and Singapore at first. And then these guys made another company and made Podix, which is the booking system now they're selling all across the world for podcast studios.
Makes sense.
So it's very interesting. And so we're working on that. And what we want is that each licensee will have their own Podix and they will be able to control their pricing, right? We'll set that up for them. So Podix and then Stripe. And then we'll use Stripe Connect to split revenue, which is an easy way to do split revenue if you ever want to do it.
Yeah. It's almost like that spa model, people, they've got software to manage a spa and book time in a spa. And then it's just like the same concept, I think. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned from there probably.
Yeah. And it's funny, I had a call with the guys from Podix like today, and there's still a lot of like little things to fix. But overall, the product, I think, is really good. It's visually good, right? It helps you sell more in an easier way. So it is cool, but they just need to finalize it to make it just a little bit better. But it's coming. It's coming.
Okay. Just a couple of questions as we wrap up. What is something you've changed your mind about recently?
I've changed my mind about. Wow. That's interesting. Well, if we talk podcasts, like pricing wise, I'm changing my mind between credit package. So you can buy multiple credits, good for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Or a monthly plan, right? So I'm pushing more on the monthly plan because I want people to keep going, right? Not just for the money, but also, a lot of people will drop after 3 months, right? They'll do podcasting and then they'll drop off, right? So, and as you know, you need to go constant for like 2 years. You just need to do it. Yeah. And that's the hard part.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you find that everyone that's recording, are they doing podcasts or are they using it for other content like webinars or other video content?
there's definitely a mix, like some webinars, some realtors, some people,
Okay.
a lot of people are just,
Mm,
recording and creating reels, which is
yeah.
great,
Yeah.
right? We use Opus Clip a lot, Opus Clip, I
Yep. Yep.
presume.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of people will just put the podcast into Opus Clip and and I teach that to my client too. I'm like,
Yeah.
put it into Opus Clip. You can program all your clips. Like it's
Yeah.
really easy. It's, you have to use these tools, right?
Of
So a
course.
lot of people will just come in and record just random clips for random things, or they do podcasts. But I always say the easiest way to do it is do a conversation and
Yeah.
then pull out clips of that. If
Of
you're
course.
alone talking, sometimes it's really hard,
Yeah.
right?
You have to be really good at creating that solo content and be able to take people through that journey of what you're educating them on or teaching them on. And I think that's a bit more challenging. Last
Exactly.
question. What is the most misunderstood thing about you?
I don't know. That's a hard one. The most misunderstood thing about me. Yeah, I really don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I would have to think about it a bit.
That's okay. Now, sometimes it's the biggest answer I've gotten is people, especially in the podcasting space, people think everyone in podcasting is super extroverted. And 80% of the people
Oh
say,
yeah,
I'm a bit more introverted and like I don't like to get out. And it's
yeah,
so funny. We're always on camera, we're always talking. And I'm kind of the same way. I'm
yeah.
situationally extroverted.
I, exactly. And I'm 50-50. So if you don't know
Yeah.
me, I'm
Yeah.
introvert. But if you give me a microphone at an event and I can
Yeah.
speak in English and I'm in charge of the event,
Yeah.
then I'm extrovert. Like, and
Yeah.
then I'm like, I'm good. But I'm definitely introvert first.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, which is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a weird thing.
I think it's something you become more self-aware of as you get older and you're like, oh, because I'll go to these
Yeah.
podcast conferences and I'm just meeting everyone, networking, talking, hanging out at night. But 2 or 3 days, I come back into my office here and just wind down, so it's helpful. So I really appreciate the connection and getting you on this. Learned a lot as well. I'm really excited to share this with my audience. So where's the best place? I know the website is onpod.io. Anywhere else you want to send folks to
Exactly.
connect with
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, no, this is good. Onpod.io or LinkedIn. If you want to share my LinkedIn, that's always
Of
great.
course.
I think LinkedIn is a powerful tool. I did not use LinkedIn in the past.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's
So
so
good.
good, because all these business people are there and they're kind of ready, right? So LinkedIn is really the place to be for me right now.
Yeah. So we'll make sure all those links are in the show notes. Thanks again for your time, Jeremy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Harry. We'll talk later.